Welcome again to The Actor's Vow. This is your host, Denise Porratrapat. I'm so excited for this episode because it's the last one of 2020. I'm not gonna get negative here, but we all know 2020 has been tough, and I am just so excited to start a new year. Just let me live in my dream that because the year is gonna change, everything's gonna change, which we know is not gonna happen, but I'm just gonna live there for a moment. I want to say, first of all, I'm sorry if you hear noise in the background. My boyfriend, Christian, is watching Star Wars, which honestly is making me really jealous because I'm here talking to you. And, after this, I have to edit the podcast and do all the things, which, mind you, I love doing. I love doing this podcast. But Star Wars, Star Wars is happening in another room next to me. So we're going to try to ignore that. Also, if you like Star Wars, I hope you watched The Mandalorian. Did you see the season finale? I'm not going to say anything just in case you haven't watched it. But if you haven't, just do it. Just do it. And if you're a fan of Star Wars and you still haven't watched The Mandalorian, you have to. I promise. It's so good. And I hated the movies Disney did, this past 3 movies. But The Mandalorian is the real Star Wars. And I am so excited for the future of Star Wars. Okay, that's all. This episode is not going to be about Star Wars. It's the last episode of the year. And today, I wanted to bring you a little bit of my opinion. I don't have a guest. And I wanted to bring you my opinion on what the industry, both stage and film, is going to look like. Not just next year, but whenever we come out of this pandemic. Before we do that, I want to introduce you the Sunday Spotlight of this week. This week's Sunday Spotlight is Emily Carpenter. Emily is from the UK, which is very exciting. Not only she's from the UK, but she also studied acting in New York City. And I just felt very connected to her story because I was from Spain and I flew all the way to New York City also to study acting. I think it's so cool that she decided to share her story with us. She's going to be talking about being an international student, the things she noticed about America versus the UK, and what she's done after graduating. Now she's back in the UK and she plans on working both in the UK and in the US. So I'm very excited for you to read her interview this Sunday at the Actor's Vow Instagram. But if you want to find Emily before that, she has an Instagram and that's at Emily J. Carpenter. At EMILYJCARPENTER. All right, so let's get straight into this week's topic. I want to make it short. This is the last episode of the year, which means next week I am taking a break and we will see each other in January again. I want to talk about the future of the industry. I want to start with stage, which is Broadway, West End, and, everything that is meaning theater in the world. I will focus more on the US because that's where I am placed now. But also, I want you to know that these are just speculations and my own opinion. So we don't know what's going to happen. And most people inside the industry refuse to say, even if they know things, because, there's so much uncertainty right now. So just be aware of that while I'm talking about this. So let's start with Broadway. So Broadway last year was a 1.8 billion industry. And it wasn't only just a major part of New York City, but also of the country. If we're talking about theater in the US especially, and in the world, everybody thinks Broadway. Now we know that even in the best times and when everything was great in the world and there was no virus, theater is still the most fragile of all the arts. Like, let's think about film. Yes, film is suffering right now, but we still have streaming services. We still can watch it on the TV. It's different, they're making less money, but it's still happening. And film is not going to go anywhere. We have screens. Think about music. Yes, there's no concerts right now, but musicians are still releasing albums. They're still doing things because we have, thankfully, we're so lucky that this happened in an era where we have internet and so much technology where we can still release content, even if it's not in the same way that, we did before the virus. And we also, have, like, for example, museums. Yes, museums are closed, but the art is not going anywhere. All those paintings that have been there for many, many years are just going to be there waiting when things reopen. But then we have theater, and theater is an art that needs people. There's no way that art can be created, or it can even begin to happen without people. So this is a very, very fragile moment for theater, and it will continue to be even when things reopen because of the economic impact that it's had on the industry. So let's go back to before the virus, or right when the virus happened. By the end of April, lockdown started on March. By the end of April, there were supposed to be 16 new plays, new musicals, and revivals on Broadway that were enough to fill almost half of Broadway's 41 active theaters. And they were supposed to be open in order to be eligible for the Tonys that have been postponed. And those are not going to open. We don't know if those are going to open, but those were stopped. Imagine those 16 new shows that were ready to open 1 month after the lockdown. Among them, there were very interesting things. One of the new ones was a musical that was called Six, and it was about the wives of Henry VIII, and it was aiming for Broadway and to stay there 3 years. That was their plan. So that's also changed, of course. This show was hours away from opening night when they said lockdown, theaters are closing. There were supposed to be revivals also of How I Learned to Drive, which we've talked about in this podcast, a revival of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and many, many other shows that were supposed to be so exciting, and that is not happening anymore. Apart from the new things that Broadway had, we also have the things that Broadway has. Apart from all the shows that were supposed to be new on Broadway, we also have the shows that have been on Broadway forever, that are classics. I mean, one of them, The Phantom of the Opera. Phantom had been playing uninterrupted 13,370 performances over 32 years. I mean, that is more than I've been alive. The Book of Mormon has grossed in all these years 660 million. Since it opened in 2011, that's not that many years to make that much money. And Wicked had been on Broadway for 17 years, and it was approaching 1.4 billion. In those 17 years, that show just made that. And that's incredible. So what's going to happen to those shows? Because yes, the shows that hadn't been released, that were new things or revivals, those can come back. But these things that have been there forever, I don't know how they're going to make a comeback, because things are going to change after things reopen. Priorities are going to change. I mean, yes, during the pandemic, we have virtual plays, and lately there's been so many performances, online, not just on Zoom, but like they've put them in streaming services of Broadway actors and theater, and so many cool things have been happening, but it's not the same as live theater, and we all know it. So what is going to happen to theater when things go back to quote unquote normal? So it's possible that when it reopens, in my opinion, to bring audiences back, they definitely have to think about lowering the prices. The thing here is that it's going to be back on a local level before it is on a global level. And the problem here is also that Broadway made most of its money from tourism, and that's not going to be happening for a while. So first, Broadway is going to have to focus on a local level, which means it's going to have to lower the prices. It might have to cater to a different audience. We might have to cater to a younger audience. There was a lot of tourists that were more advanced age that were going to Broadway, or people in New York. We might have to change the approach of Broadway. And that, yes, also means lowering the tickets again. We also will want a more diverse audience. Also, this pandemic has not just coincided. I don't think it was a coincidence, but it has. During the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement has taken place, which is something that we still haven't been able to see its results really in, for example, the theater industry and the way that Black Lives Matter movement can change the theater industry. I am very excited to see where diversity is going when things open again, and how much we can make this better, and we can make all these months that we've had to fight for diversity and all the things that have happened during quarantine. Let's see if we can make that real. So I'm very excited to see where Broadway goes on that sense. I think Broadway will also have to think when it reopens, what is the kind of show people want to see? Not just for a younger audience, but think about it, we've been in quarantine for almost a year. When Broadway reopens, who knows how long it would have been. If we look back in history, in, eras where there's been war or there's been like a very global catastrophe, both the film and the theater industry have had to opt for more light-hearted, more comedic shows and more comedic products. So Broadway will really have to think about that. Like, maybe people will want to see more like forget your trouble musicals more than serious dramatic plays. That's something that we will have to take into account too. Now, getting out of Broadway, I think a great thing that might have happened during the pandemic, and more than great, maybe positive, is that, as we said, things are going to start more on a local level, more than global. And that just doesn't mean just on New York City or just on Broadway. The good thing about the pandemic is that more places will start having local theater. Not that local theater hasn't been a thing, but maybe we will prioritize more local theater. And maybe theater on a local level will reach other dimensions. Other cities will open, which means more opportunity. It won't mean that maybe just you can be a theater actor just in one place. I mean, we've seen that, of course, yes, there's Chicago, there's Boston, there's, so many places in the US where you can do theater, but I think this is going to increase. And it's going to be a great opportunity to make theater a little bit more just outside Broadway. I think this is going to be an opportunity for the theater industry to show that, the thing that we always say in the theater world, the show must go on. And Broadway will certainly find a way to make it happen. I truly do not believe, and there's no way that theater is dead. Theater is never gonna die. That is a very negative thought. Yes, I think a lot of theaters are going to close for now. I think when Broadway reopens, it's going to be like maybe half the theaters that were when it closed. Do I think the theaters that have closed will reopen again in time? Yes. I think there is many, many people in New York or in the world that love the arts and have the capital to make that happen. I think that that's not happening right now because everything's very uncertain. But when we go back to a world where uncertainty is not that palpable and we know where things are going a little bit more, we will be able to start making those investments to bring theater and all the things that were affected by the virus back. So that's my take on the theater world. Now, I want to give you a take a little bit more in depth of the film world because that's where I am right now. I am located in LA and that's what I've been doing in the past year's film. So, to start with, last year, the film industry made about 11 billion. Now you heard the theater industry was 1.4 billion. Of course, in the film, there's so much more money involved. It's like 1.4 to 11. Doesn't sound that much, but we're talking about billions here, not millions, billions. So, of course, the loss that the film industry has experienced during the pandemic has been monumental. We knew that it was changing. When Netflix appeared, when the internet appeared, influencers, Instagram, social media, all these things, we knew content and film and the film industry were changing. Now the pandemic has just accelerated this disruption to a whole new level. Let's talk, for example, about movie theaters, which are going to change. I mean, again, this is my opinion, But I can almost assure you that things are not going to be the same when the virus goes away. But all AMC, Regal, and Cinemark have said, and if you look at the numbers, you will see that they won't survive another 6 months at this rate. There is no way that these theaters can survive because they're paying so much money in rent, they're paying so much money to have those movies in there. They have so many expenses, and the money they're making because nobody is going to the theater, it just doesn't make sense. There is no way that can be sustainable for 6 more months. And I think 6 months is being very, very conservative. Now, what is going to happen with those theaters? I don't think theaters are going to close. What I think is going to happen is that, for example, Amazon is going to take over one of them. There has been rumors that Amazon wants to take over AMC once AMC declares bankruptcy. Disney could start having theaters too, and they, for example, could do a combo experience that combines ESPN and live sports and, you know, their streaming service and Disney movies, and also going to the theater and the big screen. I think, for example, Apple is going to take over a lot of things. So, I think, for example, Apple could do like a mix and match of subscriptions that blend the big screen and the small screen. So you pay a certain amount a month, like we're doing now for the streaming services, but that also will include the big screen. So everything will be a little bit more connected and a little bit more merged. I think that's where it's going to go, and these are going to end up being the owners of theaters. So I don't think theaters are going to die. I think they're just going to change ownership and the way it's going to be done. I mean, only a few weeks away, Warner Bros. Announced that Wonder Woman 1984, which was like their big movie of the year, that they pushed back, and they pushed back, and now they're like, we have to release it. They just announced that it will be released both in theaters and on HBO Max on Christmas Day, aka in 2 days, this Friday. I understand that they need to put out the content. They can't just keep pushing it back. But again, this is not the profit they would have if the virus wasn't here, if there wasn't a pandemic, even if they release it at home. They are losing money. And it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to make these movies. So I think also the way movies are going to be produced is going to be way different. I think we're going to start reducing cost. I think these mega budget movies, until things go back to, again, quote unquote normal, are going to not happen. I think we're going to push for more movies that are more, not low budget. I think they're going to be incredibly produced movies, but maybe they're going to be shot in less time. And they're going to be streamed on, Netflix, which is like what Netflix has been doing until now. And Amazon and HBO and Hulu. I mean, not only streaming services, but we know that the big studios, Universal Pictures, Warner Media, Disney, they're all at the same time pushing for the video on demand. And they know what they're doing. They know where the money is, and they know where the future is. So I think that's where it's all going. Not just the big studios. I was very shocked when I read that Martin Scorsese has signed a multi-year contract with Apple. Scorsese. And David Fincher has signed an exclusive, which means he cannot do anything with anybody else. 4-year contract with Netflix. Fincher. If these big filmmakers, if these big directors are signing with streaming services, these exclusive multi-year contracts, I think we can all assume where the industry is going and where all this is going to go. Also, not only that, studios are outsourcing productions, which I think is very, very exciting. I think there has been so much fear in the industry of film is gonna die, and it's not gonna die. Things are just changing, and you can't be scared. You just have to be ready for it. I was talking with one of my best friends. He's a director of photography. He was here in the podcast in the episode that was in Spanish, so you probably haven't heard it because it was all in Spanish. He's a director of cinematography, and he is from Spain, but he has been working in the US, here in LA, for 6-7 years now, I think 7. And he has many films on Netflix and Showtime and all the streaming platforms. So he knows what he's talking about. And he was telling me, that next year in Spain, there's 121 productions scheduled. And we're talking about not little productions. I'm talking about Netflix and all these big new streaming platforms are shooting things there. And I know it's not just in Spain. I think in Spain there's going to be a lot of things going on because of the government allowing that, and the regulations are way more loose than they are here. But I think studios and streaming services are outsourcing things to many places in the world where they're going to be shooting. So that is very cool, because until now, like for the stage, we were saying everything's been like very focused on Broadway. Here, everything has been very focused on Hollywood. And it's been very focused on the 3, 4, 5 more important studios. I think now we're opening a wide range of possibilities that we haven't had until this moment. I think things are not going to be just Hollywood or, Hollywood and Atlanta. I think Atlanta now was starting to have a lot of things going on in there. But I mean, the things going on in Atlanta is also Hollywood outsourcing there. But now we're talking about worldwide. And these things that are being shot in Spain, yes, maybe the director is American, but the crew is from Spain, and they'll have, background from Spain, and who knows, maybe they'll have actors from Spain. They are also bringing most actors from America or the UK, but that's just the beginning. I'm just saying we're starting to see things that are being more globalized, and that's just giving opportunities to more actors, more artists outside the US, and also inside the US. It's just giving, I think, a wide entrance, a wide door for us to be able to enter the industry, which before was very, 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 very little. I also think that something positive that we can think about that might come out of this pandemic for the film industry is that the consumption of content has increased so much. I mean, we've all just been home, right? There's nothing else to do. We've all watched TV like never before. Not just TV, but TikTok, Instagram, all the social media, it's just content. I think there's so many interesting ways of thinking about how to, repurpose and expand all that content, and how the industry can be part of that, and how that can create community. I think that we haven't thought about in all the ways that it can go. I mean, there's so much content, and I mean, to be honest, is all the content that's happening good? No. No, most of it sucks, but the content is there and the platforms to produce content are there. The other day, I was so shocked. I don't know if you guys know about this, and you probably don't, because this happened in Spain with one of these famous Spanish streamers. I don't follow these things, but this is what happened. On Twitch, I don't have Twitch, but I know Twitch right now, it's popping. It's like the thing. There was this like Twitch person, whatever. They play PlayStation. And you know that the PS5 just came out. So he was doing a live unboxing of the PS5, this guy. And he was doing the unboxing, and then he played a little bit with the PS5, and he was showing how great it is. And suddenly, light starts to flicker, and it's like a horror movie. Lights turn off and everything, and then everything starts to shake, and it goes on for like 8 minutes. Now this is all happening live. People think there's an earthquake, but like there's obviously not an earthquake in Spain. We don't know what's happening. People went crazy for 8 minutes. It's really cool. It was like a horror movie. And then at the end of the streaming, it goes to black and credits start. And it's the credits like in a movie, directed by, sound designed by, blah, blah, blah. So they did a movie live. They created a short horror film live. Live special effects, live sound, live editing, everything. It was really cool. And I mean, yeah, if you watch it, it's not crazy. It's nothing crazy. But I think that's, something that might start happening. Like, how cool is that they're going to start doing like live things? And yes, these people are not actors and whatever, but we know how the industry is going right now. It's like influencers. I mean, almost 4 million people saw this video that I'm talking about. And this is just in Spain. And so imagine when they start doing this with like American influencers, like in English, this could be a new thing. Live movies. So that's just something to think about. Netflix actually got this short, Netflix Spain, and now Netflix has the short, so you can watch it on Netflix. So it's very exciting that, you can do something live on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, whatever it is, and then these streaming platforms are the ones that are producing it, and then they have it in the streaming platform. But this idea of creating something live, it's very theatrical, right? But through a camera. So I think that's very, very cool, and it's a way in which we show that how things are changing and how fast they are changing. So that's just like my 2 cents on what the future of the industry might be like. I would love to know what you think. Maybe you have some theories, maybe you've heard other things. I would love to know what your opinion is. So please let me know. Feel free to DM me, send me a message. I love hearing from you guys. So that's all I have for you this week. Before you go though, let's bring the play of the week. This week's play is The Iceman, Cometh by Eugene. This holds a very special place in my heart, only because I saw it live on Broadway, and that was the last show I saw on Broadway, and it was with Denzel Washington on it. Not just Denzel Washington, Austin Butler. If you don't know who Austin Butler is, I didn't know who he was either. When I saw the play, he played like this young guy in the play, and I was amazed by it. I thought he stole the show. I mean, don't get me wrong, Denzel Washington was amazing, but Austin Butler, his performance was so raw. I honestly can never stop thinking about that performance. And then later on, like, he started doing TV and film, and he actually, I think, dated Vanessa Hudgens. So just a little bit of gossip here. But if you don't know him, look him up. I think he's gonna do amazing things in the future. Austin Butler. So yeah, this play really stayed with me. I had not read it during college, and I wish I had done it. It's a really good play. I remember it had incredible monologues, awesome scenes. It all happens in a bar, so doesn't require a large set. There is a big cast, but I think if you're looking for, just reading some Eugene O'Neill or like monologues for college, I don't think it's something that's like really overdone. I would say more for male characters. I don't think there's monologues for female characters, but it's definitely a very, very well written play that as an actor I think you need to have read once in your life. So yes, The Iceman, Cometh by Eugene O'Neill. So this will be all. This episode is going longer than what I intended it to go for, but it's the last one of the year, so whatever. I mean, before I go, I'm not intending to get very cheesy here, but I just wanted to let you know, the other day on Instagram I asked you the best and the worst of your year. I'm not gonna share the worst. We all know this year has been terrible, and we've all gone through so much. No matter what you've gone through, like, I'm proud of you. Like, whatever you've gone through, we all have gone through it, and this is not to undermine your pains, but I'm just saying we can all connect with that. We can all understand that. But your best really, really made me really happy. I mean, a lot of you, have written things like plays, have written books that you intended to write for a long time and you never had the time for it. A lot of you actually started acting this year. I'm guessing, I don't know what's the story, but it's really funny how many of you started acting this year. Maybe you realize, fuck it, let's just do it. Like, if not now, when? And I'm just very proud of you for making that decision. And some of you also said that you produced your own short or started creating your own content, and I think that's awesome. It just made me really happy that, even if we've gone through so many bad things this year, there's still something to be grateful for. And honestly, the best of my year has been this podcast. And it's not to get cheesy, but I started this podcast because of the pandemic, and I just didn't want to be in my home. And I honestly just wanted to create this community because that's what I was craving. This was not, in a way, it did start in a selfish way. I was craving a community of artists, especially during quarantine. I thought this was the moment where we could all help each other, support each other, and do things together. And that's only going to increase next year. I have so many cool things prepared for next year. And I know I've been saying that for a while, but trust me, it takes a lot of time to prepare things if you want them to be great. So it's gonna be worth it. I'm so excited to share them with you. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for all your support, because none of this would be possible without you. I would just be talking to a wall. And I mean, yes, I'm an actor. I do talk to walls and I talk to objects and anything around the house, but it's cool to have someone listening to you, and that someone is you. And I'm just so grateful. A year ago, I could not have imagined that I would be having a podcast and a community with such incredible artists. You guys are so kind, and you guys participate and talk to me, and you talk to other artists, and you've met people through the Actors Vow, and that's just great. And that's why we're here. And again, this is just gonna continue to be better and better. So thank you for this 2020. I wish you the best for these holidays and for New Year's Eve. Please, please, please stay safe. We will have many more years to celebrate with friends and family this year. We can just do it, through screens, and stay strong. I wish you the best for the next year. I will see you in 2021. Thank you again, and I love you so much, guys.